For decades, millions of fans remembered John Denver as the gentle, nature-loving troubadour whose songs like Rocky Mountain High and Take Me Home, Country Roads captured the spirit of a generation. He was a voice of optimism, a champion of the environment, and an icon of American music. His 1997 death in a small plane crash was mourned as a tragic accident, the loss of a beloved artist pursuing his lifelong passion for flying. But the story we've been told, the comforting narrative of a kind, careful man taken too soon, hides a far more complicated and troubling reality. Behind the headlines, behind the sanitized versions of events, lie crucial facts that challenge everything most people thought they knew about John Denver's final flight. Today, we're going to uncover the hidden truths, piece by piece, and reveal why the story of his death is far more complex than the legend suggests. What you're about to hear is not just speculation. It's an investigation into overlooked details, expert assessments, and accounts from those who knew him personally, all pointing to a disturbing pattern of risk, misjudgment, and personal struggle that culminated in that October afternoon over Monterey Bay. Let's explore the 5 critical factors that together solve the mystery of what really happened on October 12, 1997. 1. The plane he flew should never have taken off. The first element in this story is both technical and tragic. John Denver's aircraft that day was a Rutan Long-Easy, an experimental, home-built plane. Unlike factory-built aircraft with standardized safety checks, the Long-Easy was a second-hand kit plane assembled by a previous owner with some modifications. It was a small, highly maneuverable craft, but it came with quirks that demanded precision, careful planning, and unwavering focus. The most dangerous of these quirks was the placement of the fuel selector valve. In a standard plane, this valve is easily reachable from the pilot's seat. But in Denver's Long-Easy, the valve had been positioned behind his left shoulder, a modification made by the original builder. To switch fuel tanks mid-flight, Denver would have needed to twist his upper body almost 180 degrees, reach blindly behind him, operate the valve by feel, and still maintain control of the aircraft with his other hand. Aviation experts reviewing the crash concluded that this design flaw played a central role in the accident. It created a situation where a routine, necessary task became a deadly distraction. Witnesses and investigators note that the plane's fuel situation on that day made such a maneuver inevitable. Running low on the right tank, Denver attempted the switch to the left. In those critical moments, the distraction, the awkward positioning, and the confined cockpit made losing control almost unavoidable. This plane, which had passed inspection shortly before Denver purchased it, represented a perfect storm of dangerous design choices. For a pilot, even one as skilled as Denver, the margin for error was razor thin. The aircraft demanded precision and a calm, undistracted mind, qualities that, as we will see, Denver's personal circumstances may have compromised in his final months. 2. He wasn't legally allowed to fly. Perhaps the most shocking factor in this story is that John Denver had no legal right to pilot an aircraft that day. His FAA medical certificate, which certifies that a pilot is physically and mentally fit to fly, had been revoked months earlier due to repeated alcohol-related incidents. Denver had multiple DUI arrests in 1993 and 1994, and again just 2 months before the crash in August 1997. Each of these incidents was automatically reported to the FAA, creating a documented pattern of concern. By October, Denver had been explicitly warned not to fly until his medical certificate was reinstated, which would have required demonstrating sobriety and passing further evaluation. Despite these restrictions, Denver proceeded to Monterey Bay, prepared his experimental aircraft, and took off. No one at the airport verified his pilot status, and the system that exists to prevent unsafe pilots from flying failed completely. Experts note that this deliberate decision to fly in violation of federal regulations provides insight into Denver's state of mind. It was more than a simple oversight. He ignored the rules designed to protect him and others from exactly this kind of risk. The disregard extended to pre-flight preparations. Reports indicate that Denver did not conduct the required fuel checks, failed to calculate fuel needs for the flight, and did not familiarize himself fully with the aircraft's manual. Each omission compounded the danger and set the stage for the fatal accident. 3. Personal struggles cast a shadow over his final years. Behind Denver's public persona of optimism and environmental advocacy, his personal life had been unraveling for years. By 1997, the gap between the man fans adored and the reality of his life had grown into a chasm. The dissolution of his second marriage to Cassandra Delaney in 1991 left him emotionally devastated. Financial strain from the divorce and declining musical relevance compounded the emotional blow. By the mid-1990s, Denver was struggling to maintain his career. Younger audiences were increasingly dismissive, and record labels had largely lost interest. The once celebrated artist faced irrelevance. Friends describe a man battling depression, withdrawing socially, and expressing hopelessness. He attempted to reinvent himself through humanitarian work, environmental activism, and space advocacy, pursuits that reflected his resilience but could not recapture the adoration of his peak years. These emotional and professional pressures are essential to understanding Denver's choices on that final day. He was not the carefree nature lover of his songs. He was a man grappling with a cascade of personal and professional losses, a state that may have influenced his judgment in ways that proved fatal. 4. Questions about whether it was truly an accident. Among those closest to him, questions linger about whether the crash was entirely accidental. The official NTSB report ruled it an accident, citing the awkward fuel selector and Denver's probable loss of control. Yet, several factors invite speculation. Weeks before the crash, Denver had been denied reinstatement of his FAA medical certificate, effectively grounding him from legal flight. His final comments to friends hinted at fatalistic thinking. One pilot acquaintance recalled Denver saying, "Flying is the only freedom I have left. What's the point of being careful anymore?" The flight itself was irregular. No formal flight plan was filed. Standard pre-flight checks were skipped. He was flying an experimental plane he barely knew, without proper authorization. While there is no definitive evidence that Denver intended to crash, his actions suggest a reckless state of mind, possibly influenced by emotional despair, regulatory rejection, and accumulated personal pressures. This ambiguity, whether the flight was accident or conscious risk, deepens the tragedy. It is a question investigators cannot fully answer, leaving a haunting layer of uncertainty over his final moments. 5. The media sanitized the story. The last piece of the puzzle is how the media presented Denver's death. In the immediate aftermath, coverage focused on his music, environmental activism, and the tragic irony of a nature lover dying in flight. Critical details, his suspended pilot's license, DUIs, financial struggles, emotional distress, and the aircraft's dangerous design, were largely omitted or glossed over. This selective narrative preserved the public image of a wholesome icon, but it obscured the full story. Mainstream media framed the crash as a simple, tragic accident, leaving millions of fans unaware of the complexities surrounding his final flight. Even documentaries and biographies often maintain this approach, celebrating Denver's achievements while downplaying the struggles and risks that defined his last years. Sanitization may have protected his legacy, but it also robbed the public of a deeper understanding of mental health, human error, and the real consequences of risky decisions. Denver's death, in truth, is a cautionary tale as much as it is a loss of a musical icon. When these 5 elements, aircraft design, legal status, personal struggles, potential recklessness, and media sanitization, are considered together, a clearer picture emerges. Denver took off in a plane he was still learning to operate without legal authorization and without performing proper pre-flight checks. At some point, he needed to switch fuel tanks, a routine task made deadly by the experimental aircraft's poorly positioned valve. Reaching behind his shoulder, distracted and contorted, Denver likely lost control. His emotional state, history of impaired judgment, and life pressures compounded the danger. Whether this sequence represents pure accident, negligence, or conscious risk remains unknowable. What is clear is that his death was not caused by a single mechanical failure or mistake. It was the result of a complex interplay of choices, flaws, and circumstances, a convergence of human vulnerability and mechanical risk. John Denver's final flight reveals a story far more complex than the one most fans have been told. Behind the crash lay a dangerously designed plane, a pilot flying illegally, a man grappling with depression and life pressures, and unresolved questions about intent. The media's simplification created a comforting narrative, but left a reality of struggle unexamined. This fuller picture does not diminish Denver's immense cultural and artistic legacy. His music continues to inspire, to evoke the beauty of nature, and to bring joy to millions. But understanding the truth of his last day offers something equally valuable, a reminder that even beloved icons are human, flawed, and vulnerable. The John Denver mystery isn't just a story about a tragic accident. It's a story about risk, judgment, and the complexities of human life, the layers beneath the image, the choices we make, and the consequences we cannot undo. The truth may be uncomfortable, but it is worth knowing.